And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Alix Steel. We're counting you down to the closing bell. You're here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast, joined right now by Scarlet Fu in the television studio, Massar and Tim Stenovec in the radio booth as we welcome our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms. First trading day here, Massar, of the new quarter. Not much price action here. In fact, seeing a modest sell-off across the board. The NASDAQ holding on to modest gains of about 0.1%.
Yeah, a little bit of an uptick, I feel like, in the last few minutes of trading. But yeah, kind of ho-hum, if you will, certainly on the equity side of things. But what's interesting is we were talking earlier with our Ira Jersey about the ISM manufacturing this morning. And I'm kind of like, we always talk about the importance that we're a service-led economy. He said, I think it was an important report and showing an uptick for the first time since, September of 2022. The significance is, he says, manufacturing leads the economy. So maybe that's certainly some positive momentum. And what that means for the Fed, maybe they're going to be on hold longer.
Yeah, well, speaking of the Fed being on hold longer, we checked in with Torsten Slok over at Apollo. He's the chief economist. He's a partner there, Scarlet. And he held to his view. Remember that note a month ago where he came out and said the Fed's not going to cut rates this year? Well, he said it was a little lonely a month ago, and it's less lonely now because more and more people are coming into his corner right now. And more data we're getting to back that up, whether it's that ISM data that Carol mentioned, IPO markets heating up. He says it's really difficult to see that this doesn't give a tailwind to GDP growth in the coming months.
Yeah, he's feeling vindicated. Although, remember, last week we were all about the PCE and how that was going to set the tone. I feel like we forgot all about that in the wake of the ISM manufacturing numbers.
But that just sort of pointed to his point as well in terms of the stronger underlying economy, Romaine.
Well, at least for one data point, it seems to suggest that. You overlay that with the other data points, and I guess so. You're starting to see expectations in this market shift a little bit on the first trading day of the new quarter. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lower by about 240 points, or about 0.6%. The S&P lower by 11 points, or 0.2%, while the NASDAQ Composite holding on to gains on the day, up 0.1% here. But the big laggard on the day, you're actually going to find that more in the cyclical and small cap space. Dow Transport's down 1% on the day. The Russell 2000 down by a similar amount.
All right, let's get into some of the large caps in terms of the overall trade. 134 names in the S&P 500 higher today, Scarlet. You've got 368 to the downside, so certainly more of a risk-off trade in the overall trade. Maybe no surprise there, and 2 unchanged.
Yeah, let's take a look at how it all shakes out on the IMAP, because you've got 2 of the 3 biggest sectors in the green. Communication services and infotech. They're up, although communication services is really the only one that is up decidedly, gaining 1.5%. Energy moving higher with oil prices, and tech just eking out a gain. 8 other sectors are in the red, led by real estate investment trusts losing 1.8%, healthcare down 0.9%, and industrials losing ground. One of the outperformers in the first quarter, losing 0.8%.
All right, let's get to some of the individual gainers, if I may. Micron Technology, number 1 gainer in the NASDAQ 100, number 2 gainer in the S&P 500. This one at its highs today, guys, was up as much as 8%, finishing the day with about a 5.5% gain. B of A raising its price target on Micron specifically to 144 from 120. Stock closing at 124 and change today. B of A saying that it sees strong growth potential for high bandwidth memory products, noting that they are critical to AI. By the way, the stock has been on quite a tear since it came out with earnings and talked about its AI outlook, boosted that outlook. That was back on March 20th. It has gained around 30% since that earnings update, so quite a run there. Stocks also was an outperformer today, was up more than 1%. Another name that caught my attention, this was your top gainer in the S&P 500. We're talking about 3M, finishing the day with about a gain of about 6%. This is after it previously announced settlement agreement with the U.S. public water suppliers received final approval from the U.S. District Court in Charleston, South Carolina. That federal court approved 3M's offer of at least $10 billion to settle PFAS claims of roughly 12,000 public water systems across the United States. So, you know the story, resolve some litigation and overhang, and you often see a stock pop. So 3M up, as I said, about 6% in today's session. One more, Wynn Resorts up about 4.25% in today's session. It was a top gainer in the S&P 500 on heavier volume than usual. Data out from Macau noting that Macau's March casino revenue rises 53.1% year over year. The estimate was just below or just above 49%, 49.2%. So some big outperformance there. Wynn, as you know, their biggest revenue chunk does come from Macau. So a winner in today's session.
Hey, let's get to some of the decliners here. I do want to start with Walgreens Boots Alliance shares, the worst performer in the S&P 500 today, closing down close to 10%, 9.9%. In fact, shares closed at their lowest going all the way back to 2010. The company did last week report results, and it narrowed its fiscal 2024 guidance. It cited a challenging retail environment, reduced spending from the consumer. Shares initially gained after that, but then it gave up those gains as analysts remain concerned about the company's earnings outlook. Separately, investors also learned in a filing that the IRS is looking for $2.7 billion in unpaid taxes from the company due to alleged issues over transfer pricing. This comes after audits of previous tax years. Shares of FedEx also slipping on the day today. They fell as much as 3.6%, closing down 3.3% after the company announced its contract with the United States Postal Service will not renew upon its expiry in September. The parties were unable to reach an agreement on mutually beneficial terms to extend the contract. Negotiations did conclude on March 29th following extensive talks. And then let's check out what shares of DJT, Trump Media and Technology, ended up doing today. They wiped out their gains from going public, down 21.5% today. This after the company disclosed it lost more than $58 million last year. Revenue for the former president's Truth Social platform started to trickle in. The company generated $4.1 million in revenue for the full year. We don't know how many active users it has, but in its prospectus in February, it said that Truth Social has about 9 million signups across its platform. Shares fell as much as 27% earlier, but down, closing down over 21%.
That stock is just so fascinating, especially when you know that its majority owner, biggest shareholder at some point is probably going to be selling shares. It's amazing to me. Okay, looking at the bond market, we're seeing a nice move in the bond market. We're on offer here. You get back-end yields up by 11, 12 basis points. And that was all the ISM manufacturing data that Carol was just talking about. You saw that expansion. You saw prices paid. You did see the unemployment or the employment index actually move lower. So there are layoffs happening. But we were talking to Tim Fiore, who heads up the data, and he was saying that maybe by June, those layoffs will help resolve itself. And he's relatively positive here, particularly on new orders, guys.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought, this report, it's funny, we've kind of been ignoring these manufacturing reports for a while because we're told that it didn't matter. But it was, I really encourage everyone to go and read it because you do get a better sense here as to what the conundrum is going to end up being for the Fed. Carol?
Yeah, speaking of manufacturing, the manufacturing problems over at Boeing are certainly leading to some additional problems at United Airlines. United Airlines, guys, asking pilots to take some unpaid time off next month, blaming late deliveries of new aircraft from Boeing. And so they're reducing the delays in getting the aircraft and so on, reducing the number of hours that United planned that its pilots would fly this year. This is a story that we've been hearing out of the carriers.
Yeah, United was set to have received 80 MAX 10s this year, part of an outstanding order with Boeing for 277 of the planes. The airline, though, has been working with Boeing to convert some of its MAX 10 orders to the smaller MAX 8 or 9 variants to receive the planes sooner. Also talking with Airbus to try to get some of those A321neos sooner. But, we're talking airplanes here. Airbus is sold out of A320s through the end of the decade. So, it's not as easy as just calling up.
Yeah, this is going to be a multi-year problem.
Yeah.
And of course, the FAA has already said it's looking into United's operations and going to be encouraging it to slow down its growth. So the lesson for all of us is don't take United this summer.
Well, doesn't this also mean that prices are going to be higher? If you have to take out pilots and in essence
demand,
capacity, right?
Yeah.
Are we just paying more?
Yeah, that was my first. When I read that story, everyone's so focused on the pilots. I'm like, what does that mean for me?
More.
I just bought. I just bought a couple tickets to go down to Florida.
You have a private jet, though. It's not a problem.
You know how much it was?
How much?
It was a lot.
A lot of miles.
And it's not even first class, Tim.
I
had to fly coach. That's how bad things are.
Hurts.
I thought everyone was leaving Florida.
I thought so too.
And that is true. Did you guys see this New York Post article where it's like people go down to Florida and now they're like, hey, wait a minute. I don't like it anymore. This is not what I expected.
Climate change, right, and other issues. It's getting really hot, and they're really worried about kind of some of the things that are happening there.
It's really hot, and they can't get insurance on their homes, and everything costs a lot more. So they're
Was
like, you know what? It's better up north.
Was that not an issue? When everyone started moving there?
In the last couple of years, no.
So in the last couple of years, it's gotten hotter?
No. After the
last couple of years, they couldn't get insurance?
After the pandemic, the insurance companies jacked up their premiums, definitely.
I guarantee you.
Are you
those
questioning
premiums,
that Post story? Is that what you're doing, Romaine?
I'm saying those premiums were high before they moved down there. I'm saying when everybody was moving down there in the middle of February, everyone said, yeah, Miami's great in February. What does it feel like in July and August? And they got a taste of that, and everybody fled back to New York.
But the insurance claims have gotten, the insurance plans, have gotten really expensive. expensive, and they're just companies who just can't deal with some of the costs as a result of either
Or
climate
they
change
go
or
naked,
storms.
right? They just
You don't need
have
insurance. Yeah, just
No, you do need
just ride it out.
It's also hot.
And then where do you live?
It's also hot and humid in New York in the summer, guys. Let's not pretend this is
Not like Miami.
Let's
You
not
kidding
pretend
me?
this is California.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
But where else are you going to walk the streets and dodge all the rats? And
You know it when it starts to really stink on the subway.
Garbage.
Anyway.
I can't wait, Romaine. I can't wait till you start your own travel channel. It could be
Is that it?
interesting. Yeah, it could be really
next
interesting.
career.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Wrapping up our Monday close here on radio, TV, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals. We call it Beyond the Bell. So we will see you same time, same place tomorrow.